Penguin Random House Audio presents The Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenlee. Read for you by Dion Graham. With an introduction written and read by Natiki Hope Pressley. To my wife, Nikki.
Introduction. Hi, this is Natiki Hope Pressley. This book is about neither race nor politics, inequality nor revolt. Although race and politics are the backdrop, this book is about freedom. Over 50 years ago, when my father, Sam Greenlee Jr., wrote The Spook Who Sat by the Door, some critics chose to see his book as simply an outline plan to educate and train youth gang members in Chicago to violently overthrow the city. They overlooked the meticulous intentionality of Spook's main character, Dan Freeman, a man on a mission to quench his thirst for freedom and justice. Freeman lawfully infiltrated the CIA through an affirmative action recruitment program designed by a failing politician who sought to win back the black vote. In an all-too-familiar political ploy, Dan successfully completed the program and gained field experience, but was assigned to serve as the copy boy. He's kept in a non-threatening position, void of authority and dignity. Dan's true motivation for joining the CIA was to use what he learned to empower his community and serve a purpose greater than upward mobility. The noted, quote, spook performed menial duties, overcame ridicule, and endured blatant racism to work towards his ultimate goal, revolution. There are those who would vilify Dan Freeman's character, calling him a troublemaker, rabble-rouser, an angry black man, a disgrace to our race, or just too aggressive and extreme. It is easy to see him as the antagonist in an American fairy tale, but I propose seeing Dan as a victim of two of America's greatest tragedies, inequality and injustice. Like many, Dan earned a merit-based promotion. He successfully completed the CIA training program with all its rigor. He went from being a young man living in inner-city Chicago to a CIA agent, but because he's a black man, he would never earn the respect the position garners or experience the full benefits of his achievement. Dan determined it more expedient to use his access to the, quote, system as a weapon against it. Although his tactics in this book may seem overzealous and dangerous, the essence of his intent should not be ignored. Growing up black and poor in the inner city has a significant impact on societal perspective. The synthesis of pain and power drive Dan Freeman to extreme measures with unbridled passion. Honestly, when we look in the mirror, many of us can see parts of Dan glaring back. The message is very clear for him. The fight against the system of racism requires an indirect approach, an impeccably designed covert operation. Freeman, the spook, is a freedom fighter who deliberately puts himself in the center of every battle. Quote, spooking, as my family and I frame it, is just that, working from the inside out. Around the time of World War II, white soldiers often referred to their black counterparts as, quote, spooks. And later the term also referred to spies who were notorious for their ghost-like maneuvers. This double entendre represents the duplicity of Freeman's existence. A black man attempting to excel in a predominantly white career on purpose, whose intention is to overthrow an entire city by establishing and training an inner-city youth guerrilla militia. This kind of duplicity is not unique to Dan Freeman. I believe all people of color in America adopt it, in some measure, to survive. It is challenging to build successful families and careers while also being reminded constantly by politicians, judges, and police officers that your black life doesn't really matter. This is just one reason for the incredible frustration and unrest. Black and brown people in this country work hard to navigate and participate in a predominantly white society, but also desperately seek a profound way to express and celebrate their own culture and heritage. It's a social merry-go-round, and the inconsistency is dizzying. This American experience is immensely disproportionate, riddled with injustice and hypocrisy that somehow survives from generation to generation. The American experience of freedom has often been predicated on mandate, policy, or legislation. Even the, quote, freedom to choose awaited legislation. The mere fact that freedom must be given implies that freedom is not intrinsic. We are not, quote, born free. Our grade school education taught us that freedom exists through a governmental act. Primary education delivered an early message that we were, quote, free to do whatever our teacher told us to do. Follow instructions and leave only when the bell rings. There was no particular lesson on personal freedom or on the liberation of the mind and soul. Only lessons on physical freedom were worthy of attention. Education is intended to prepare people to exercise the, quote, freedom to think and act independently. So why are we conditioned to relinquish our freedom in our formative years and then petition for it at the polls in our adult years? We are destined to remain slaves to a system of socio-political constructs that were cultivated in America. This is not to say that systems of social and political oppression were born in America, but they are certainly nurtured here. Freedom, like hope and love, cannot be legislated but must be definitively qualified by demonstration. Some external manifestation of its reality. For example, when someone says they love you, while you appreciate the confession, you await an action to validate that statement. There is a reason the phrase, quote, random acts of kindness was coined and not, quote, random confessions of kindness. To describe one as, quote, kind means that person has demonstrated kindness in their activities. In other words, freedom, like kindness, has limits. We measure our freedom by experience, not presumption. Words like liberty, independence, and unrestrained usually accompany freedom. Yet people without obvious restraints or who have a semblance of independence still eagerly pursue freedom. Why? I believe all people are created with an internal compass and a genuine desire for justice that guide them in the direction of true freedom. This book explores how Dan Freeman seeks out both. When my father wrote this book, it was a shadow of his own life, a personal revolt against racial injustice, police brutality, and economic disenfranchisement. Spook is his termination letter to institutional racism and a clarion call for true liberty and justice for all. This was his valiant effort to encourage our heroes in the fight for social change and a willful discharge from the societal disease caused by the undeniable promotion of inequality and injustice in America. I hope this book inspires every listener to evaluate what freedom looks like in their life and what they're willing to do to get it.
1. Today, the computers would tell Senator Gilbert Hennington about his impending campaign for re-election. The senator knew from experience that the computers did not lie. He sat separated from his assembled staff by his massive, uncluttered desk, the Washington Monument framed by the window to his rear. They sat alert, competent, loyal, and intelligent, with charts, graphs, clipboards, and reports at the ready. The senator swept the group with a steely gaze, gave Belinda, his wife and chief aide, a bright smile of confidence, and said, "All right, team, let's have a rundown. Don't try to sweeten the poison. We all know this will be the closest one yet. What I want to know is, how close? Tom, kick it off." "The campaign war chest is in excellent shape, Chief. No major defectors." "Good. I'll look over your detailed breakdown later. Pick."
I spent a week on Mad Ave with both the PR boys and our ad agency. They both have good presentations ready for your approvals.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?